Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming for this screening of Ainu Mosir at the Hong Kong Asian Film Festival 2020. We are very happy to have with us today, this evening, the director of this film to join us for a discussion about this film or his filmmaking career and also all the questions that you would have for him. So I'm sure the director is already online or not yet. Okay. So 多謝大家嚟到香港亞洲電影節2020。咁其實呢一個放映啦，咁其實我哋今日就請到呢套電影嘅導演福永壯志同大家喺用 Zoom 嚟見面，咁就同大家有一個對談。咁大家有啲咩問題嘅話，請隨便舉手。咁我哋一陣同事咧就會第二個咪俾你㗎啦。I think the director is already online. Fukunaga-san? Yes. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Hello, Fukunaga-san. Could we have a round of applause for the director, Takeshi Fukunaga?
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much for this very, very powerful and moving film. But maybe I should kickstart the proceedings by asking the first question. I know that you were actually born in Hokkaido, so the Ainu must be very close to your heart from the very beginning. So can you tell us a little bit more why you decided to make a film about the Ainu?
Okay. First of all, thank you everyone so much for being here, and then I'm happy to be here to talk about the film. I was born and raised in Hokkaido, Japan, but I never had a proper education about Ainu, and then it was only after I moved to US to study abroad when I was 20 that I realized that I didn't know anything about Ainu. So the initial desire was really for me to learn about them and their culture. And later, when I started thinking more about making a film about Ainu, I realized historically there are only very few fiction films about Ainu, and every time it was made, it was Japanese actors playing the Ainu roles. So I thought making a movie about Ainu, starring Ainu people, working with Ainu non-actors would be something meaningful. And then it's a with a hope to make a good step, toward better recognition and understanding about Ainu people.
As we see, this is a very close collaboration with the Ainu community, specifically with the people at the Akan Ainu village. So how did the collaboration begin? How did you reach out to the Ainu community and convince them about your project?
Right. So first, when I started this project, I just went to different towns in Hokkaido and then met, as many Ainu people as possible. And then talk to them and learn about them in person. And then after I decided to set the story in Akan, where I shot the movie, I first met those people and then talked to them and then learn about them. And then as I started to come up with a story, I had many meetings and then conversations with them, and then what kind of story that might that might work as a movie. And when I had some kind of rough draft of the script, I went to them and then showed it to them and then listened to their opinions. And so all the characters are based on real people. They are all those actors are playing a version of themselves. And so I wrote those characters, with those, these actual people in mind. But when we shot the film, I never asked them to memorize the lines. And instead, I asked them to speak freely as much as possible. So, as a result, half of the dialogues in the film were improvised. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are some lines that had to be said to make the story, but they had a great amount of freedom as far as how to say or what they say.
So actually Kanto's confusion about his own identity or his growing pains, so it's actually a version of his own growing pains or his identity issues?
It's essentially it's a coming of age story, and then I think almost every teenager has a similar struggle. Whether it's he or she is Ainu or not. And so before we started, shooting this, he was very, hesitant to practice traditional Ainu dance or, songs. And he was a lot more interested in listening to American music and, playing the music with a band. Like the song he played in the movie, Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry, that was, an actual song he was already practicing before we started, filming. So many things are based on the reality and who they are. And then, of course, then there is other fictionalization, of the story to dramatize it.
Mm-hmm. Did he actually say to his teacher or maybe even his mother that he'd rather be anywhere else than in Akan? Did he actually say that?
That was a line, to make it more dramatic.
Okay,
but he did move out of the town because it is true that there's no high school near that town, and almost every child has to move out of the town away from the parents to go to high school.
It's quite interesting because your previous film, Out of My Hand, it was about Liberian immigrants in the US. So it's also a film about marginalized communities. This one also, it's also about a very marginalized ethnic group in Japan. So why do you have this interest in such communities?
Good question. I guess, it's not something like that's the only thing I want to do. But so far for the first two films, I just, felt so, it's something meaningful. And then, because I could see the value of making those movies, which, that, and then something beyond just because I wanted to do it, I could, really devote myself into it. And, of course, at the end of the day, I made those movies because I wanted to make it and I wanted to tell those stories. But at the same time, I did see crucial, meaning, to tell stories about people who are underrepresented in the society. And then that's something I still find a good great value in. And then I'm whether it's with film or other things, that's always something I would be interested in learning and then doing what I can.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe I'll leave my questions here for the moment and see whether there are any questions from the audience. Okay, this gentleman here.
Hi, I have a question. So as you can see from the film, it seems that the Japanese government has always been trying to assimilate the Ainus and try to suppress their own culture. As you can see, they are speaking Japanese, they have Japanese names. They even have to learn the Ainu language, right, for some of the second generation. But I believe it also shows that right now the attitude has changed. They may allow them to preserve their own culture. So what is your view? Is it, are they doing the right thing? Do they give them the enough support? And what is the intention of the Ainu people themselves?
Thank you for your question. It's a very complicated situation. In short, in my view, the Japanese government hasn't done enough to support them. As it was briefly mentioned in the film, Ainu people, just like many other indigenous people around the world, has been a victim of forced assimilation, starting, like way back when Japanese people started, moving towards the land of Hokkaido. And then that happened really quickly over, several, the result of, losing several wars against the Japanese people. And then especially in like 19th century, the government really, like, for example, banned their traditional practices, or like fishing or hunting. So, and then that happened, really quickly, because the geographically, it's a small land, and then the pressure was so high, and so now there's no native speaker of Ainu language. There are people who are learning, and like the language is still alive in like songs and prayers and other things, but and there is they are facing a tough situation, and then like I said, the government has only made few like small steps for the last several years. For example, the last year 2019, the Ainu people were remarked as indigenous people in the Japanese law for the first time. And then before that, in the Japanese Congress, they were recognized as indigenous people back in 2008. So it's only 12 years ago, while these people has been there from the beginning. So there is a long way to go for the government, and also for the common people in Japan and outside of Japan. And like if you ask a common Japanese person, they wouldn't know much about Ainu, for example. But I'm hoping that this movie will be a step towards a better future.
Okay. Any other questions for the director, Fukunaga-san? Okay, maybe I'll ask another question, because just now you mentioned about the how mostly the Japanese population, they don't really have that much knowledge about the Ainu. For example, I remember this scene when this couple actually praised the mother of speaking good Japanese. And it's quite ironic in a way, because of course she speaks Japanese. So how did the Japanese audiences receive your film? Has it already been shown in Japan?
Yes. So this movie opened in theaters a month ago in Japan. I mean, opened in at the theater in Tokyo, and then now it's going to different theaters throughout Japan. Mm-hmm. And the reaction has been really positive. Many people are learning new things about Ainu people, and then who they are and what they do. And then I think it's giving them an opportunity to really look back to history, and then what the root of Japan and then the Japanese people are. Mm-hmm. Like many people have, it's been kind of a twisted fact that like Japan is a homogeneous country, which is not true at all. There has been a diversity from the beginning. Like the Japan, there were people has been living in Japan, and then there are people migrated from China and then Korean Peninsula to with more advanced culture, and then those are two different kind of people. And then Japanese people now are a mix of these two type of people. So and then Ainu plays a significant role in that history. And then so we have there's still a lot to learn about them, and then a lot work to do as far as a better understanding and recognition.
I think the Ainu's respect for nature is quite central to this particular story. For example, well, the rituals of bowing to the mountain. And also, actually, the film ends with Kanto looking at, if I'm not mistaken, an owl, isn't it? At the last shot of the film. So it's also about a seemingly sacred animal and filled with symbolism. So why did you actually put these animals or actually nature at the center of this film? Is it something that you like to say about how we could all learn from their way of looking at the world?
I mean, in nature, just like many other indigenous culture, plays a significant role for their culture, their spirituality, their philosophy, and so even though they are living just like every other person in living in the modern day, still the nature is a big part of who they are, and then they're about what Ainu culture is. So that's a very big reason why I try to kind of give a character to the nature, because as they believe there are many different kinds of gods living in nature, and also it's just such a beautiful scenes that that I have strong feelings for. That's I mean, it's a different part of Hokkaido, but still it's around I was born and raised.
Okay, let's see whether there are any questions from the audience. Okay, anything? Yes, please. Yes.
I have a question on, well, sorry. First of all, I appreciate the characteristic in the costumes and the culture that you presented in the film. I do see that there's quite a resemblance to the to Indian culture in terms of like the totem, the animal that they presented in their carving and everything. You presented a very interesting perspective, which is where the beheaded bear was brought into the room where they were doing the dancing and chanting, and then your shot was presented in the perspective of the beheaded bear and viewing the people in the room, and then finally it landed on the boy. I felt differently when the first gaze to the man who actually shot the bear to its demise, and then the gaze on the boy. I felt very differently on these two different gaze, but how do you see it? Like, how does nature look at us in human?
Thank you for the question. It was my attempt to show the core of the philosophy behind the ritual in a visual way. So the POV point of view shot of the one you mentioned is actually supposed to be the perspective of the god that was in the bear's body. So the idea behind it, it was mentioned in the discussion amongst adults in the village earlier in the movie. But so they in Ainu philosophy, they believe that there is a god within the bear, and then so they raising the bear cub is actually spending time with the god. So and then after they kill the bear, even the body, dies, but the god inside the bear doesn't die. And then the ritual goes on with singing and dancing inside the house, with an idea that the god that was inside the bear is sitting on top of bear's head and enjoying the ritual. And the next morning, so someone shoots an arrow into the sky that's supposed to show the way back, show the god, the way back to the god's land. So those shots, again, were representing the existence of the god. That's that's which is a foundation of the whole ritual. And then my intention behind it was to, really show the spirituality, and then what the ritual really means. I know, there are some people wouldn't, maybe would find it difficult to watch people killing the bear, but in that traditional Ainu idea, it's not about killing the bear. It's about being with the god. So those shots were supposed to show that visually.
Okay. Myself, I would have a lot of questions to ask, but sadly we've run out of time. So, well, thank you very much, Fukunaga-san, for this very, very moving and impressive film. Shall we give another round of applause to the director, Takeshi Fukunaga?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, and thank you very much for joining this screening of Ainu Mosir. Thank you.